Monday Night Raw starts off with the Usos. They come out to the ring. They was cutting a promo, but they end up getting interrupted by the Bronson Reed, and Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker basically ends up mentioning how they the ones that run Monday Night Raw. Then he ends up mentioning Paul Heyman and mentioning how he got taken out, and then he ends up starting crashing out a bit. He starts twitching, shaking his head, and then he was about to walk towards the ring, but Bronson Reed had to pull him away, calm him down, which I thought was hilarious because the way Braun Breaker pulled that off was actually very funny. Then they go back and forth for a bit. It was a cool moment where the Usos start cutting a promo how they used to, where they bounce off at each other and constantly and you have Jimmy Uso say something, then Jay say something, then Jimmy say something, then Jay say something, which I thought was really cool. Then this eventually leads to I think eventually they end up basically confirming the match at WrestlePalooza, so it will be the Usos versus the Bronze. And then Jay was trying to say that he could just have the match right now, but they end up declining. You get LA Knight. He ends up attacking both the Bronze. You get the Usos ends up helping him. They stand tall. Then it was a moment towards the end of the brawl where LA Knight and Jey Uso ends up accidentally colliding, almost colliding to each other, but they end up preventing it. LA Knight ends up stopping himself. Then he ends up moving out the way because Jey was in it was in the turnbuckle. Bronson Reed ends up taking advantage, ends up attacking Jey. This allowed, of course, LA Knight and Jimmy Uso to take out Bronson Reed, but then this caused some friction between LA Knight and Jey because Jey think he did that on purpose and that he set him up. Then this leads to a segment later into the show where Jey and Jimmy was talking, and Jey was like, "Look, I'm leaving the arena. I'm not coming back. I'm leaving." And Jimmy was like, "Look, we got to take care of this vision problem. How about LA Knight?" Jey was like, "LA Knight wasn't trying to help me. LA Knight set me up." And then he ends up saying that I'm done helping people. It's about just winning and about just destroying them all. Then Jimmy replies, ends up saying that you're not sounding like yourself. You're starting to sound more like Roman, which I really like. I like what they're doing here. Potential heel turn. I don't know if I would turn Jey heel because I don't know what a heel Jey Uso could possibly do right now in the current landscape of WWE because I just don't know what you could do with as of right now, especially because he's supposed to be, in the main event scene. With Seth Rollins winning that World Heavyweight Championship, I don't know who Jey Uso could feud with as a heel right now. So I don't think this is really a heel Jey Uso. A lot of people are going around. I think this is just more of a serious babyface version of Jey Uso, in my opinion. I don't know if they're going to heel route. And if they are going to heel route, we all know this is going to be stretched out for a very long time. We know how Triple H is with his long-term booking with stretching stories out. So I'm very interested to see how this goes. Very interested in this character development for Jey Uso. Very curious to see how this plays out. We end up getting live Valkyria versus Raquel. This match ended up becoming official due to last week where Judgment Day ended up interrupting a segment with Lyra and Adam Pearce, and they go back and forth. So this is why this is happening. Raquel picked up the victory, and she won cleanly, which is very shocking. I was very surprised that she won cleanly because I thought that they was just going to have Lyra win, Roxanne either get thrown out or she tries to cheat but fails. And then next week, we're going to have Lyra versus Roxanne, which I'm very excited about revisiting the feud from back in NXT, which was amazing. So, very interested what they do there. But very shocking that Raquel win because typically when heels win, they always cheat. So, now it was shenanigans, but the shenanigans that happened in the match wasn't that big of a deal that didn't cost Lyra the match. So, very interested to see how that plays out. I like what they did here. I like they had Raquel win, make her look strong, because you can lose a match and still look strong. Losing a match does not make you look weak, especially depending on who you're losing the match to. So I'm glad that they didn't have Raquel have to do a bunch of cheating shenanigans to pick up the victory. She's supposed to be this dominant powerhouse heel. Make her feel powerful, make her feel dominant. So I like what they did there. Now we get AJ Lee. We end up getting a promo. She ends up basically mentioning what happened 10 years ago, mentioning how she retired. She ends up mentioning why she retired, saying that she felt she did everything she could in WWE and there was nothing left. She ends up mentioning what she was doing the past 10 years about just finding herself, healing herself, and, improving her health overall. Then she ends up mentioning Becky. Becky Lynch comes out, and Becky Lynch basically wants her Intercontinental Championship back because she's like, look, you don't deserve to wear it. I earned that title. I made that title prestigious. I want my title back. AJ is not giving it back. She's basically saying that if you want it, you could come and get it. Then they go back and forth. Becky ends up insulting her, Becky ends up saying that this has nothing to do with you. This is about me, my family, and your husband, and that you had nothing to do with this. And then she ends up basically calling out her husband. Seth is trying to, get the title back, but and he ends up asking AJ to get the title back. He ends up saying that this is all so simple, that just give us the title and we'll be out our way. AJ responds back, ends up saying that you can either, well, she can either just, Becky can just come in the ring and she could try to fight it for it, or I would give it back if you agree to a match between her, CM Punk, versus Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. Of course, they don't want to agree to the match. Seth Rollins tries to come in and just take it, but AJ Lee keeps blocking him off. Then Seth Rollins starts crashing out. CM Punk comes out from behind and tries to hit him with a GTS, but he escapes. And then Seth Rollins ends up agreeing to the match. I like what they did here. I do think it's a bit weird because we have seen this played out before. The only thing, because we have seen wrestlers take like things from other wrestlers, like championships, and they was forced to give it back. Like, because I remember vividly, like 2 years ago, when Sami Zayn was a part of the Judgment Day storyline, he took Damian Priest's briefcase, but on the next show, he had to give it back. That's the only plot hole I'm seeing here, because why didn't Adam Pearce tell AJ Lee to give the title back? Now, you could say that AJ Lee isn't signed with a brand. That is the only logical thing I can think of, because she isn't signed with SmackDown or Raw. She's probably most likely going to be signed on Raw. But that's the only logical thing I can think of. But that's what I was thinking the entire time. I'm like, why hasn't Adam Pearce just forced AJ Lee to give it back? Because you did it with Sami Zayn. You forced Sami Zayn to give his briefcase back. So I assume that if you steal a championship, you have to give that back too. So I like what they did here, but that's what I was thinking the whole time. But the only thing I was thinking was maybe he doesn't have the power and the authority because she isn't signed to his brand. So that could be the only thing that is saving it, where that's the only thing that makes sense. But either way, we get the match. This was a really good segment. Can't wait for that match. That match should be very exciting. AJ Lee's first match back. Can't wait to see how that plays out. Very excited for how that goes. We ended up getting a match between Penta versus Rusev. This match ended up becoming a thing due to a backstage segment where Penta was mentioning the Intercontinental Championship, but he ends up getting interrupted by Rusev. Rusev ends up mentioning he should be the one going after the IC title. He deserves it. They get in each other's face. So this leads to a match. And Rusev won cleanly. Another clean match. I love what they did here on this episode of Raw. All the matches was won clean. Like, it was slight shenanigans here and there, but for the most part, they won clean. I like what they did here. You do not need to cheat in order to protect your baby faces. If the guy is dominant enough, or depending on the heel, it is not a shame to lose to that heel. The babyface can always come back and improve. That's the whole point of being a babyface. Being the better person. Understanding that you lost. You got to improve yourself. That's what babyfaces typically do. It's not a shame in losing to a heel. I like what they did here. They have Rusev won cleanly. Rusev is a big, dominant powerhouse. He just beat Sheamus. It's no shame in losing to Rusev. You building him up strong. So I like what they did here. I like they didn't try to protect Penta. I like what they did here with the matches on Monday Night Raw. Wrestlers losing matches, losing them cleanly, and not them doing a bunch of shenanigans in order to protect the babyface. I like what they did here. Interested to see if he goes after the IC title after this. Does this make him the number one contender? Who knows? But let's see how this plays out. Then we end up getting Nikki Bella versus Asuka. This match ended up becoming a thing due to a backstage segment where Nikki was trying to talk to Io. I don't know why they're forcing that, but tries to talk to Io. Asuka, of course, interrupts. Nikki Bella took that as disrespect, so this, of course, leads to a match. Asuka, of course, won the match. She ends up tapping her out, which I did like, because again, she won cleanly, because I had a feeling that they was going to have Asuka cheat to beat Nikki Bella of all people, but she won cleanly. Then it was a segment backstage where Asuka ends up talking some trash about the match, and then Nikki Bella ends up saying that she ends up getting mad and ends up requesting that does Asuka want some more, which I thought was very confusing, because I'm like, you tapped out, not her. Like, what you mean she wants more? Do you want more? Because you lost. But Rhea ends up coming in, and she ends up basically saying, do we have a problem? And Asuka ends up saying, yep, it's Nikki and Rhea. And then she ends up walking away. So we could potentially seeing a tag team match. I don't know if it's going to happen at WrestlePalooza, but they're really building up WrestlePalooza as this big show. And if you really want to build it as this big show, might as well have Rhea Ripley on there. Might as well, have Rhea Ripley and Nikki Bella throw in that match. Now, am I really that interested in the match? Not really, but it should be a fun little match, fun, enjoyable match. So we'll see how this plays out. Now we get the main event. LA Knight versus Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed picks up the victory. Another clean victory, which I enjoy. Then you end up getting the attack between the Bronze. Jimmy Uso comes out, he fails, he gets attacked. Then you end up getting Jey Uso, who said he was leaving the arena, but I guess he must have magically had a change of heart and came back. He ends up failing as well, but eventually the babyfaces ended up getting an upper hand with LA Knight, getting a steel chair, was able to take out both the Brawns. Then you end up getting a moment where LA Knight was helping up both Usos. He's talking to Jimmy, and then you get Jey Uso spearing LA Knight, and that's how we end the show. I like it. I like this. I like what they're doing here. One of my main criticisms I have in wrestling in general is that, for whatever reason, they always have this thing where all baby faces and all heels get along, which I always thought was corny and just weird because not all baby faces and not all heels act alike. I have always, it was one of my main things with the Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul thing because I'm like, Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul are two different types of heel. The type of people, the type of person Drew McIntyre is, he shouldn't be liking Logan Paul. I like what they're doing here. I like this. And people are saying this is a heel turn, which I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad if it is. I don't think it's a heel turn. I just think it's a more serious version of Jey Uso. Him just being a more serious person, and him just focusing on himself instead of constantly trying to help others. But this could be a heel turn. Could be. I like what they're doing here. This is very interesting, and it's a different dynamic because this is a babyface dynamic, but this isn't your typical heel babyface dynamic. So I really like what they're doing here. Very interested to see how this plays out. Overall, I thought this was a solid show. I thought this was a very fun, enjoyable show of Monday Night Raw. You guys let me know your overall thoughts and opinions down below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.